Hi everybody. Now I'm very serious today, and I'm serious because I can't remember the last time I bought you such a creative, inspirational and diverse USB. And that's saying a lot because we bring them to you all the time. But this one, the Ways of Lace from Tattered Lace, just blows everything out the water, quite frankly, because of the amount of things that you can do with it. So I'm just going to talk you through what's on it and how you would use it. If you're somebody that never, ever, ever, ever wants to go near Canvas Workspace, either you don't own a computer, you're not interested in going into Canvas, you have got everything that I'm about to show you, okay? And you can cut it, and you can resize it, and you can do all those amazing things. So let me talk you through what you're getting, because you're getting 91 doilies to start with. So what Lauren has done when she's designed them is they're all symmetrical, which is brilliant. She's given you the full lace effect. Then she's given you one with a solid center. Now you could put an aperture in there if you wanted to, okay? And it's up to you what aperture you put in. Then we go on to the next doily. So she's given you a very, very detailed layer. Then she's done a layer that just has the fancy outside edge and a layer that has the double fancy outside edge. So you have so much versatility. And as you go through, she's done something similar with all of the doilies. So you're getting really fabulous, fabulous effects. So that's the first page. Then we go on to page 2. And remember, all these can be resized. So the scan and cut needs 3mm turning point. So if you are resizing it, make sure you don't go too small so that it can still cut it really cleanly. But just looking at some of these, I mean, imagine buying that, and that as a 6-inch die. You're already at least £20, at least £20. So just for those three, what a bargain you're getting. Then we've got our next doilies. So we're up to number 69 here. So you've got all these different ones here, which I think are just phenomenal. And this is just the beginning. So you've got all these amazing doilies as well. And the index sheet is on the USB, so you can print it out at home, which is good, or you can just look at it on your computer. So up to the last of the doilies here now. So you've got rectangular ones, ovals, squares, these beautiful shapes. So and when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at what's inside it as well. The other thing that we've done this time is we have done a digital download on our website for Cricut users. Because of the way that Cricut imports an SVG file, if it isn't compounded, so in other words, if all that detail hasn't already been punched through the back, so it sees it as one shape, it splits it. So it would give you the outside edge and it would put all the detail in a row. If we do that on our USBs, it takes away all the creativity for scan and cut users, so we don't do that because we want you to get as much value as possible out of a USB. So if you are a Cricut user and you're watching this video, there will be a digital download available on highlightcrafts.com, and you will be able to then just use the doilies, obviously resize them, do those things, but you won't be able to do what we're about to do in Canvas Workspace. Then we go on to our frames. So you've got these beautiful frames that coordinate with the doilies that you've just seen, but can be used completely independently. So for example, this circle one here, you could do this in Canvas, but it would take you a little while. So what Lauren's done is she's created the triple one, the double one, and the single one, so that you can layer all those up. While I'm talking to you about this, every single one of them can be a stencil, which means that every single one of them can be used with your hot foiling pen from Highlight Crafts. So when we bring you the hot foiling pen and we bring you the wider nibs, all of these could be foiled, okay? So you could fill them in, cut them out of Mylar, cut them out of card, use your foiling pen. All of these can then become metallic and foiled, which takes your price level, if you're selling it, to a different place. So you've got all of these. Then we go on to the corners. So you've got coordinated corners. Maybe you want to take this image here that looks a bit like a fan, rotate it so it's like that, and maybe you just want to have these coming down the middle. Maybe you want to take that, duplicate it, and have another one here and put a butterfly body in the middle. There are so many different things that you can do with this USB. And I'm telling you now, during this education and during the shows, I am literally touching the tip of the iceberg. This is one that you will go back to over and over and over again. So just showing you what it looks like as a stencil, because I cut this out of Mylar and I used a 190 micron Mylar. I won't go much thicker than that with the Scan and Cut. This is the pattern that is now a stencil, so I can ink through that. If I want to ink through that, I might want a second layer that can go behind it. So I've created an inward offset line, which means that you then have a layering stencil. So you then have a stencil that goes over the top of a stencil, so you can double foil or you can use your inks or your paints. I can't even begin to tell you how much I'm looking forward to doing these shows because it's huge. And every time I go to the computer and do something else in Canvas, I find something else that I can do with it. So this is what I've come up with Doily number 1, just to start with. So 1 doily. Look at this. Look at all these different ideas that we've got. And I'm about to take you through some of these now and show you exactly how you do them. And we're going to start right at the beginning with the original, just the doily as it is, okay? So this is what it looks like when you cut that doily out of card, which is beautiful, out of card, just with the outside edge attached. Okay, so that's a simple one. That can be done straight away on your Scan and Cut, okay? Your second one is where you choose to have a different matte layer behind it. So I'm going to go into the USB. We're going to go to our lace panels and doilies, and we're going to go to file number 1. And you'll know what file number 1 looks like because it's on the index sheet on your USB. I'm going to press OK, and I'm going to go to edit. Now, an easy way of knowing whether that is already a grouped shape is if the 3 red select boxes aren't lit up, because if it's only one shape, you can't multiple select because there's only one shape. So that tells me to be able to ungroup it, I need to take it into Canvas Workspace. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And I don't want anybody to be scared of Canvas. Because I was adamant I was never going to do it. And now I might as well go and live in there because I'm in there all the time. And it's a fabulous place to be, let me tell you. So we're going to send this into Canvas Workspace. If you are new to the Scan and Cut and you haven't opened a Canvas account yet, when you do, because you'll want to, because it is amazing, I would suggest, my advice would be that you use the web app version, so not the downloadable version at this stage, and you use it on a laptop, because every time you hover over an icon, it tells you what it is, which makes life a whole lot easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is just come back to my Scan and Cut. We're going to press OK, and we're going to save this, bit quick there, save this into the cloud. Okay, so it's now up there somewhere, floating around, up there. But we can get it by going into New Project and My Projects. And there is the doily that we've just looked at, okay? So because we've taken it into Canvas Workspace now, when we go to Edit, we can ungroup that. And that's the bit that you can't do with the Cricut, okay? Because it would have to be compounded so it's one shape, because right now the Scan and Cut is seeing that outside shape with all those pieces sat on top. If you imported it into Cricut, Cricut sees it as we see it, as a lacy doily, but it's not, you can't ungroup it. So you can't get to all that detail in the middle. And maybe that's what you want out of a digital cutting machine, but maybe you want to be really creative with it. So I'm going to move this out of the way. So straight away I've got an outside edge. So for the doily that I've just shown you, all I did then was duplicate this. So I've got 2. Okay, because it was grouped, remember. I'm going to group all the waste pieces together. So there one. So edit and group. And then I'm going to select both of these and align them and put them back in position. So we're aligning them centrally vertically. And then we're going to edit and we're aligning them centrally horizontally. So we've now got, and let's just group that. Okay, so we've now got our original one and we've got a matte layer. Okay, so that's number 2, because you've got the first doily cut by itself. Doily number 2, you can separate the outside edge and you can create your doily like that. Doily number 3, which I'm actually going to show you, is this one. I have a pile. Look at this pile, and I haven't got to the end of the pile yet, which is super exciting. So this is now the doily cut in cream with a black matte behind it and a cream matte layer. So that could be your card blank if you wanted it to be. So to do that, we're going to go back into Canvas again. So we're going to click on our outside edge. We're going to go to Edit, and we're going to create a perfect matte layer for the doily to sit on top of, which is slightly bigger all the way around the outside edge. So to do that, we create an offset line. And the difference between making a shape bigger and making an offset of a shape, if you make it bigger, it expands from a certain point. So it won't be a perfect matte layer. An offset line will plot the distance from every point around the edge of that shape. Say we want a 2mm offset line. It'll go around every point around that shape. It will measure out 2mm. It will join all those things together, and it will give you a perfect matte layer. Okay, so it's you can't get it wrong. It's brilliant. So we're going to create a 2mm. So we're just going to use the slider at the top, outward offset line, and we're going to leave the original as it is. So we've now got our offset line now. So you've got your doily, your matte layer that fits, that is exactly the same size as the doily, the matte layer that goes behind that, and then if you wanted to, you could then create another offset line which will become your card blank. And the way to do that is to do exactly what we've just done, 2mm outward, leave the original as it is, move that one out of the way, and this then can become your card blank. Now, because this at the size that this is, it's not going to fit on a 12 by 12 card if we weld 2 together. So what you could do is just put a perforation line or a score line right the way across there, just like that, right the way across, so that you can fold that back. This becomes your back then, with your score line in, and the rest of it becomes the front, and I'll show you that on TV, okay? So you've got your mats and layers, all right? So we've done all that. At any point, you can go to Project and Plus and save that project, okay? So I'm just going to show you what it looks like with the mats and layers, if that's all right. So I've done 2 sets. I've done one that looks like that. Now you have a whole new set of nesting shapes now, because you can go inward and you can go outward. You've also got a matte layer for those, as you can see. You could put that way if you wanted to. Maybe you're doing a scrapbook page. You could do that if you wanted to. There's also the smaller matte layers. So these are the ones that are straight off the outside edge of the doily, plus a couple of mil. And then we go wider and wider. So these two can also work together because you can mat and layer like that. This is a really quick, simple, inexpensive way of making unusual cards. Look what happens when we turn that diagonally. You've now got another one. Now, if you brought on the cream file here and the cream file here, and you welded those two together, you would have an outline of that shape. So now you've got a different shape in hundreds of different sizes. This is why we do our USBs the way we do them, and we don't compound them, so you can get to the outside and you can get to the inside, because that's the exciting bit. Right, so those are the first 4 that I came up with. Now we're going to go on to this one, because this is using the inside of the doily, putting a square around it and then creating offset lines. And we do this by flipping between the Canvas Workspace and our machine, okay? It's a different process if you're doing CM, so I'll show you both, okay? So let's start by getting rid of this lot, because we don't need that anymore. And we will bring in our doily again and start afresh, okay? So we're going to edit and ungroup it. I'm going to get rid of the outside edge because I don't need that now. Now you can right click, instead of keep going up to edit, if you want to, you can right click and delete. It's up to you, whichever you prefer. You need to make sure something's selected first, that would really help. So right click and delete. Okay, so we've now got our doily. Actually, we've missed a bit there. So what I've done is deleted the wrong bit. This is the great thing about Canvas. You have an undo button. So we're going to undo it. We're then going to select the outside edge. We're going to right click and put that in the bin. Okay, there's your doily. So all we need to do now is grab all of that, go to edit and group it together. Then I'm going to use my back arrow here to go from my projects to basic, and your basic shapes are all inside Canvas as well. So I'm just going to drag this out to the size of square that I want it to be. So let's say about there. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller and a little bit narrower. There we go. Right, okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is drag a box around both of those. I'm going to edit and I'm going to align it centrally vertically, edit centrally horizontally, okay? I'm just going to resize this outside square because I want it a little bit narrower. So again, go back, edit, align centrally vertically, edit, align centrally horizontally. Now, I'm going to do what we call divide. And divide is what a graphic designer will do to a file before they make it for Cricut. So we're going to punch all that detail through that square and make it one shape. Okay, so we're going to make it see it as a doily inside a square. So we're going to go to edit, and down at the bottom there's a section called process overlap. We're going to go to this second one in from the left and it's called divide. And divide in my head is this big punch that comes down and it punches that pattern through that square. So it's like a die basically. So we're going to get rid of all this detail now because we don't need that at the moment, and we're going to work with this. Now I've divided it, it sees it as one piece. Okay, so when I download this now to an SDX, I can create an offset line of that, okay? And I want to create an outward offset line. Now, it's different when we do CM, and I'm going to come back to that. So an outward offset line on your SDX machine will automatically make the square bigger. So say you want a 2mm outward offset line, it'll make the square 2mm bigger all the way around the outside edge, but all the detail in the middle, it will make 2mm smaller. And that's how you create your stencil designs, your layered stencils. So I'm going to download this to my machine. So scan and cut transfer. Something else that I've learnt this week, and I need to tell you before I forget, because I will have forgotten by the end of this. If you are designing something in Canvas Workspace, and I'm sure there are thousands of you out there going, yes, we know this, but I've discovered it this week. If you name something in Canvas Workspace, if you send it via the cloud to your machine, it doesn't keep that title. If you download it to your downloads on your computer, and then you open the file and right-click it and send it to the USB, it keeps the title, which makes it so much better because you can remember what it is. So it's an extra little process, but it's worth it because it means you can name all your files, which is fantastic. Still learning things 8.5 years on. Right, let's retrieve this now. So I'm going to press OK, because I've done that bit, press home and OK. So we're going to retrieve the data from the cloud. And it's going to take a little while I say a few seconds. And now we've got our square with our detail inside, okay? So if I now go to edit here and object edit, these two concentric circles here are create offset. So if I click on that, its default is 1.5mm. So it's made it 1.5mm bigger around the outside edge and 1.5mm smaller inside all that design. If I want to take this down to 1.25mm, I can. The lowest I can go down to as a outward offset line is 1 millimeter. So if I now move this over here, so you've got to press OK first because it needs to process it. If I move this out of the way now, this is my original doily, and this is the one that I've got as an offset. And the two will lay over the top of each other perfectly. So if we come back to this doily here, you'll be able to see then, so I've got the cream layer with a 1 millimeter inward offset line, and then I've used a square and I've just put it behind there. That's a game changer for me. I love the fact that I can get to this bit because this is where all the fun is, okay? So that's that one. Now, the next bit gets really, really, really exciting because I'm going to show you how to split an image. And this is something that I've only been doing recently. I was playing around one afternoon and I thought, right, you know what, let's just sit, laptop on my knee, watching TV, just having a play around. And I did this and literally I squealed. My husband went, are you all right? I was like, yep, just discovered something new. He's used to me now, you see. So I'm going to show you how to do this one next, okay? So let's go back into Canvas Workspace. Oh, no, actually, just before we do that, I need to do this for CM users, don't I? Because otherwise it's not fair. Right, so let's go back. So let's undo this. And I'm going to have my square. So I'm going to duplicate my square like that. And I'm also going to duplicate all this detail. So edit and duplicate, okay? So this one is going to stay as it is. So we're going to go to edit and align centrally vertically, edit and align centrally horizontally, edit and group, okay? And we group it rather than dividing it because you can't create an offset on your machine, on your CM machine. Right, so we're going to bring this in now. So we're going to go edit and let's do a 2 millimeter outward offset line and delete the original. That way I'm not wondering which is which. So I've now got this. Also, when you do that, it gives you a nice little rounded corner, which is rather nice. Then I'm going to bring this in and I'm going to create a 1 millimeter inward offset line. So edit, over to your offset. We're going to do 1 millimeter inward and we're going to delete the original. And there's your layer, okay? So we then group all that together, edit and group. That then goes inside there, so we align that. So we align it, edit, centrally vertically, edit, centrally horizontally, edit and group. So if I'm going to divide them just to show you what it looks like so that you can then see it. So if I edit and divide that one, this is something else I discovered this week. I tell you, I know I might be a bit behind the times, I don't know, but I'm learning it as I go and I love it. So we're now going to divide this one, and the reason I'm doing this will become clear in a minute. I'm not going off on a tangent. I'm trying to keep my brain really focused at the moment because I've got a lot to show you. And on the shows, what we're going to do is take a different doily each hour and see what we can come up with that doily. So you can fill this with colour. So if you go to properties here, I think it's properties, yes it is. You can go to colour here. So if I colour that now, let's do that as a pale pink. That's what that's going to look like when you cut it out. And then if I do this one and I make that a dark pink, let's use a proper Barbie pink there. You can see now that when I line that, right, I need to. Right, what I'm going to do first of all is, this is something that I worked out the other day, is edit and align them centrally vertically, edit and align them centrally horizontally. Click on the screen, go to your dark pink one, right click, go to send to back, and that's what it's going to look like when you've cut it out. Isn't that clever? If I hadn't divided it, let me show you what happens if you don't divide it. And this isn't something, it's not going to print it out in this colour because it's not a printer, but it's something that's worth looking at. So if I just, let me go back and bring on the original doily. So my projects and bring on this. Let's see what happens with this one, because this isn't divided. So if I go and put colour in this, I think it fills the whole thing. Yes, it does. But once you've divided that, it then gives you that. So it's a really good way of knowing whether you've got it right before you download it and cut it out. Okay, so that's something else that I've learned this week. I think I've always known about it, but dividing it makes a difference. Right, so let's get on with this. So we're going back to our original doily and we're going to ungroup it. So edit and ungroup. Let's get rid of that outside edge. So right click and delete. And now I'm going to group all this bit together. So edit and group. So I want to split this shape now. And I want to make it half this way. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to select my square. So I now want to decide how big I want this to be, because this is now going to be a card. So this is 150. If you're wondering what that is in inches, if you go to view, you can change to inches. And then when you click off and then click back on the shape, it's 5.91 inches, okay? So let's make it, let's change that and let's make that 5.75, okay? Because I'm happy to go a little bit smaller. And then this I want to make into a rectangle. So if that's 5 3/4 and I do this at 5 3/4, 7 3/4. So I want to make this 7 3/4 high. In fact, I want to make it a 7 3/4 inch square. So we'll do 7.75 and enter. And there's my square. Okay, so I've got a decent size card now. So all I'm going to do is I'm looking at this edge, the right hand side of that square. And I'm just looking at, I'm going to show you here, this point and these center points here. Okay, so all the way down the middle, right down the middle. And I'm going to move this over. And then I'm just going to use my arrows on my keyboard just to get it central. Okay. Then I'm going to drag a box around both of them. I'm going to go to edit and I'm going to align them centrally, horizontally. So I know that that pattern is in the middle. So I've got an even space between from the top of the square to the top of the pattern and from the bottom of the square to the bottom of the pattern. And then I'm going to go to edit and I'm going to divide. This is where the magic happens, because now you have that shape in that panel. Okay. The other thing that you have, this is the exciting bit for me, is you can then grab all those pieces up to the middle, and there's a line down the middle that it's created. So we don't want to catch that. So I'm just going to do that again because I was doing it too slowly. I was thinking about it too much. I'm just going to go over here, grab that bit, right click and group. And there's half of my shape. And then I'm going to grab the rest of it. And then I'm going to go to group. And people wonder why I become evangelical about the scan and cut. Why would you not want one of these machines? It's just magic, isn't it? So you could then have a rectangle around there. You could have your sentiment in the middle, a nice coloured paper or an inky background behind it, and you've got a card. But that's not where it ends. Of course it isn't where it ends. This is canvas and brother and me. No hope of that's where it's ending. So if I bring this into here now and I divide this, so divide, remember, is punching those pieces through. What it enables it, it doesn't need dividing because it hasn't changed it, so it knows that it's fine. It is what it is, it's there, it's working as we want it. Right, so the way that we create the cream layer on this one is we do exactly what we did before. We send it down to our machine and we create that offset line. So let's do it. So I'm going to project plus this because I'm going to come back to these pieces here. So I'm going to project plus it, and then I'm going to get rid of these two pieces because I can't download those because they're not within the space of the mat. So I'm going to delete those and I'm going to download to my machine. Okay. So home and OK. Remember, once you've done this once, you don't have to do it every time. You just save them. So I'm going to retrieve it from the cloud. And there it is. So now if I do the same thing again, I go to Object, Edit, and create an offset. We'll have a 1.5mm offset this time. So actually we'll have 1.25. We'll press OK. And then we move the original. The original will always be the one that stays selected. And then you've got your matte layer there. Okay. Now I'm going to see if we can do this with the CM machine. I'm pretty certain that we can, but I just want to try. So to do that, I'm going to retrieve this from the cloud. So I'm going back to the original one that I downloaded, and I'm going to save it straight back into the cloud, which sounds ridiculous, but there's a reason why. So if I press close here and I delete that, when I go to back and I go to my projects, you need to refresh because we've sent it somewhere else and now we've recalled it. Now I'm hoping, won't let me ungroup that because it sees it as one piece. So let me just try something else. If I go to Project Plus and I get rid of that, let me try one other thing for you. And I close Canvas down or leave it and go back to the home screen. Sometimes when you've done that, it allows you to then ungroup it. So I'm trying all the different possibilities. Yep, there you go. See, there's always a way. And I am like a dog with a bone and I will find that way, let me tell you. So we're going to ungroup that and then tap the screen. So now you've got your outside edge and you've got your detail. So we're going to grab all that detail and group it, do exactly what we did before. We're going to create a 2mm outward offset line. So edit, 2mm, which is 0.08 inches, outward, and delete the original. And then with this one, we will create a 1mm inward offset line and delete the original. And then you can position that back in place like so. Okay, and there's your pattern. So that's how you can do that. Now, doing it that way was a little bit awkward at putting it back together. So if I'm going to put it in the bin and I'm going to just see if it will work with this one now that we might need to come out and go in again. We're going to go to Edit and Ungroup, and we're going to click on the screen. We're then going to, let me think about this. We're going to send that to the back, first of all, see if this works. Send it to the back. Then I should be, it's a monkey when I do this at the moment. It doesn't like sending things to the back at the moment for some reason. Oh, there we are, we've got it. Right, so if I undo that, send that to the back. It'll be something I'm doing, it won't be the machine. And then I click off it and click back on. Right, let me think about this. How can I do that? Right, I'm going to try this and see if this works. Let me undo it. This is when I get lost in the doing here. Right, so if I create from here a 2mm outward offset line, I'll leave the original as it is. And then I move that outward one. I don't know if I'll be able to do this or not, but it's worth a try, right? Now if I click on that, so I know that that's, ooh, you monkey, come on. This is when I normally walk off and have a cup of tea. Yeah, there's no easy way to do that, I don't think. So Andrew's saying to me, can't I just do it and realign them? But if I realign that, so if I do that and go Edit and Group, and then I align, create the offset, Edit, Inward. I will work it out and I will get back to you on it because I know what I'm like. and I delete the original and press OK. If I now align that with that, well, I've got to group it first. The only way I can align it to, the only place I can align it to is centrally horizontally and to the right. So centrally horizontally and to the right. And then I need to know how many. Right, so if you do that, I need to then know how many spaces I need to move that back to make it look right. Which I could use the old outline for, Andrew, you're right. Right, so look at him. This is what happens when a producer watches so many hours of this. Right, so let's do this in pieces. Let's do that. Align those centrally vertically and centrally horizontally and group so it doesn't move. And then I can bring this one in and lay that in the middle of there like that. And if you struggle getting it bang on, I would send it down to your machine and use your directional arrow buttons. Remember, every nudge on a CM machine is 1 millimeter, and every nudge on an SDX is 0.5 millimeter. So it's doable. You just have to do it in a different way. Right. So that's this bit. Okay. So I love that. It can be that way, it can be that way, it can be that way. Beautiful wedding invitation, I have to say. If you're in the market for doing a wedding, that would be fabulous. But another option is also this. Now, how lovely is that? That's just divine, isn't it? And this is super, super, super simple to do. So we're going to do this one now. So back to canvas and back to our original doily. There we go. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to keep that outside edge in place and I'm going to divide it. So I'm going to go to Edit and Divide. I'm going to move that outside edge. We're going to get rid of all those waste bits. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is bring in a square again. So we're going to go back into basic shapes. Bring in our square again. This is, let's have a look, 6.08 inches. So if I make the square the same, 6.08, 6.08 and press enter. Because the aspect ratio is ticked, it will keep it as a square. Right, so if I now do this way now, so I put the square up there, get it to the center of those little teardrops here, yep, and then I grab both of those and align them centrally vertically to make sure they're bang on, and then I go to Edit and Weld. Because I've divided it, I can weld it. Do you know what? Days like this, I love my job every day, but days like this are just magical. Look at that. Now, you can always test if it needs dividing again before we send it down, and it doesn't, okay? You should be able to ungroup that one by doing what we did previously, so you'll be able to do it on a CM, but that, as a header card, is fabulous. Now, imagine buying that as a die. No disrespect to dies, you'd probably get another outline and you'd probably get a square. So you could have this as an aperture. So if you wanted to do that, you can put a square in the middle of there now and make that smaller. In fact, just thought of something else. Let's see if we can do this. So let's undo it all, because I think we can do this differently. So if I take that square now and create a, let's do a, how far up can we go? 1 inch inward offset line and leave the original as it is. If I divide, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I'll get a workaround and divide it. I always come in here thinking, right, I'm just going to show them what I'm going to show them. And then it never happens like that. Right, I don't think this is going to be the same. Oh, no, it might. Well, do you know what? We won't know till we try, will we? So let's try. Edit and align. Edit and weld. Okay, that's different. I quite like that, actually. I'm not going to lie, I do quite like that, because you could have another frame round here. You've got your border there. You could have a sentiment that goes across here. So if we, this is where, see, I could spend weeks doing this. If we bring in a square again, and we make that into a rectangle, and we stretch this. I always used to smile when I was watching, before I worked with Stephanie, I always used to smile when I was watching her on TV and she'd go, and I thought, oh, she's found something new now. And we're going to edit and we're going to weld. Oh, bear with, select that, edit and weld. You've now got a border to put your sentiment on. It's just brilliant, isn't it? It is just brilliant. However, if you don't want to do any of that, but you want to put an aperture, I'm just undoing all this now. Thank goodness for an undo button. So if I undo all that now and bring it back to this, we can weld this first, which is what we were doing in the first place before I got carried away. And then you could put, say, a circle in the middle of there if you wanted to. So what I would do is I would bring on another square at 6.08 inches. 6.08. I would then position my circle in the middle of there. Okay, so I decide what size of circle or whatever shape it is, put it inside there. So align this centrally vertically and centrally horizontally and group it or divide it, doesn't matter. Let's divide it, put that in the bin. If I now align this centrally vertically and to the bottom and tap the screen, click back on that, right click, oh, hello. Right click and ungroup it. Oh, can I group it? No, well, let me do it there. So go to edit. Oh, it's not going to let me ungroup it now. Monkey. Right, so you're not going to beat me. I'm going to Project Plus. Oh, it doesn't need to, does it? Oh, that's why. I know why. No, I know why I've done it. Undo. I'm one of those demonstrators that doesn't care when it goes wrong because you're going to learn something new. That's the great thing about it. So, okay, I'm going to start that again. Let's start that again. Let's bring this bit on. So let's delete this. So I want I know what I've done. I want a square. This is the process that my brain goes through on a daily basis. Usually about 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why it's always that time, but it tends to be. Let's add a circle. Okay, so let's bring on a circle. Let's make that a bit bigger. Because I divided it, I can't then ungroup it. That's what I did wrong. I wasn't thinking ahead enough steps. And that's all right. Do you know what? I was listening to what was really interesting the other day. I was driving down to Peterborough from Blackburn, which took me about 4.5 hours because it was a bad run. And I was listening to Stephen Bartlett's Happy Sexy Millionaire book, which is brilliant. And it's not about what you think it is. It's very, very good. And he was talking about failures within a business. And he said, the more failures you make, the better the business will become, because failure gives you feedback. Feedback gives you knowledge, and knowledge gives you power. And I was like, that is brilliant. I'm actually going to cut it out of vinyl and put it on my craft room wall, because I just thought that was a brilliant quote. Right, so right now I've got my square with my circle grouped, not divided. I'm going to select both of those, go to edit, align centrally vertically, and then edit and align to the bottom. Now when I click off it, I can select that, I can go to edit and ungroup, I can grab the circle, right click and delete it. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Right, I want the square to go in the bin, not the circle. Undo, hallelujah. Right click, delete. Now you've got that with an aperture. Now if you divide that, edit and divide. Let's get rid of that one because that's a spare circle. Right, let's send that down to the machine. think I'm going to have to cut some more stuff when I come out of here because I've come up with new ideas. This is exciting. Right, let's save that, download it now to the Scan and Cut. Tell why I love my job so much, can't you? Right, so let's retrieve from the cloud. Because I've divided it, I can create an outward offset line. So edit, object edit, offset line, click OK. I now have a perfect matte layer. So it's made the circle smaller, so you'll see it through the bigger circle of the original. It's made the outside bigger, so you'll get a perfect border all the way around the outside. And all the detail here, it's made smaller, so you'll see it inside all the apertures of there. So you've now got a header with an aperture. It just keeps giving and giving and giving, right? So that's that one. Now I'm going to bring you on to this one, okay? So this is where we start to play around with the actual design that's inside itself. Like we've been doing that already, but to a different level now. So we're going to close that. I'm going to project plus that because I'm keeping that one. I like that one. That's cool. Right, let's right click and delete. Right, let's go back to our original doily, which is here. Let's ungroup it. Let's get rid of that outside edge. Right, so we're now going to start to drag across some of these pieces here, okay? Right click and delete. So I'm just dragging across this corner detail here. Don't worry if you don't get it right first time, there's an undo. Then we're going to drag up from the bottom. Right click and delete that. And over from here. Right click and delete. Okay, so we've now got that shape. So you've now got this. So let's group that together. That is a brand new stencil. Okay, you want to cut it out of your card. You go back to basic, square, make the square bigger, bigger still. You can do this more precisely than this, but I'm just showing you this for speed. So select all, edit, align centrally vertically, edit, align centrally horizontally, edit, and divide, because I want to create an offset for it. So we can get rid of all that, or we can group that together. And you've got that, and you've got that. So cut in, cut out, okay? So that's great. So that's one. So let's put this one in the bin. Now I want to work with this. I want to create a gatefold card out of this. So I am going to take a square and I'm going to make it, how big is this? Now sometimes when you've been doing a lot in Canvas, especially on the web app version, you lose the measurements here. So if that ever happens, just project plus it and reopen Canvas. Expected server error. Right, let me put that. Let's try that again. So project and plus. There we go. Sometimes it says something like it's undergoing maintenance and it's not available. Just try it again because it usually is. Right, so see if I've got my sizes back. Why have I not got my sizes back? Right, so we're going to shut this down, leave. I think the downloadable version is a little bit more powerful. I don't even know what the right word is, but I think it might be powerful. So you can do some things on there that will take a little bit longer in here. However, when you're learning it, please do it this way because it makes such a difference. So 5.77. So let's make this 6.77 for the sake of it. All right, so let's go back. It'll fit in a 7-inch envelope. So 6.77 and enter. Right. Okay, so I want to line this up so I've got half of it, which is about there. I'm going to drag this, actually, I'm going to make that square more rectangular. Let's drag that in a little bit, not too much because I want to put a score line in here. So we're going to grab both of those, go to edit, align it so it's centrally vertically, go to edit and divide. Okay, so this is now half of my gatefold. I'll have a score line that comes down there, and then I've got these pieces here. So I've got this one again, so I can right click and group that, and then I can move that. So I split my shape again, which is super exciting. I love that. That's amazing. So I've now got two halves. So all I'm going to do to create the gatefold card is duplicate this and flip it. So you've got one facing one way, one facing the other. That's what your card's going to look like when it's closed. You put a score line down there and a score line down there, and then you create a back for the card. So if we just come to me now, you'll be able to see that's exactly what I've done here. I've made the rectangle a much narrower on this, so you can depict what size you want it to be. I've then put a back on it in black, so you can see where I've put my score, well you can't see, but I have got score lines down here. Folded it over and stuck a piece in the back, and then I've stuck a piece of cream in the front, and that gives you a gatefold card, which I think is just fabulous. I love being able to split shapes, and I think it's really, really clever. Right, so that's that one. This one I'm going to talk you through because this is exactly the same as what we've done several times. So from this, we create an offset line, and it gives you this. I'm going to put it on black so you can see the cream. So you've got that one, and then you've got that one with the offset. I love that. I really, really love that. I think it's beautiful. It's a really fabulous design. You can also have it that way. So that could be an easel card. Isn't that lovely? I just think it's magic. You could then put the coordinating corner into here. So there's so many different things that you can build. Right, to do this one, all I did was make the design smaller. So let me show you how I did that. Let's get rid of all this, right click and delete. Let's go back to, where do I want to go back to? The whole thing. So here. Right, delete that. Right, I'm going to make this smaller. So I'm going to make it smaller first. The interesting thing about when you rotate, and you can rotate in Canvas Workspace, but if you're rotating an original shape and you rotate it 90 degrees or 45 degrees or whatever increment, if you then go back to try and create an offset or a matte layer by offsetting all the pieces and welding them together, it takes it back to its original orientation, which really annoys me. So the way that I do it is this. So I bring this on. I'm going to make that small enough to be able to go on a card. So let's do 3.5 by 3.5. And now I'm going to download that to my machine. And this is why I flip between the two. Something like that you don't need to worry about because you're just making a layout. But when you come to want to make a matte layer of that, that's when it becomes a little bit more tricky. So we're going to do that. I love this because then you've got a different shape in the middle. So you've now got almost like little hearts in the middle that you can then create another pattern from. So the more you pattern build, the more you come up with. Right, so let's retrieve this from the cloud. Let's edit it, object edit, and rotate. And I'm going to rotate it 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 45 degrees. So now I want 2 of those, and I'm going to press OK. Oh, press 2 first, Melanie. There you go. And we're going to put them in a straight row using our arrangement function. So we're going to put them in a straight line. Now, pattern interval is hidden behind here. Pattern interval 1 puts a distance of 6 millimeters between those two shapes. And every increment you go up, so pattern interval 2 goes up by 2 millimeters. So pattern interval 1 is 6, 2 is 8, 3 is 10, 4 is 12, etc., etc. So I want pattern interval 1 because that's wide enough for me. So I'm going to group these now. So edit, multiple select, everything on the mat, press OK, go to object, edit, and group it together. Now I want 2 of those underneath each other. If I ask it to do 2 now, let's do it, and I put them in a straight line, it's going to put it next to it, which is great if you want to create a whole big 12 by 12 stencil. That's perfect, okay, because you've got that. However, I don't want it to do that. So to make it put those underneath there, if you go to your spanner and you change your cut area and you drag over there like that, so it's not overlapping the original, but it's blacked out the second set, then you use your arrangement function again, it is forced to put them underneath itself. And then you click on your spanner, you take your cut area back over, and you've got it perfect in your square, okay? So we're going to group those together. So edit, multiple select, everything on the mat, press OK, go to object, edit, and group. And now I can save that back into the cloud. So I'm going to save it back into the cloud. It's telling me it includes a group pattern. I'm happy that it includes a group pattern because I can always ungroup it in Canvas. And there is the save. So now when I go back to here, I can get rid of that, so I can put that in the bin. And I refresh my projects. I now have that pattern. Now I can put a square around that now and divide it, which then means I can create offset lines from it. It just keeps going. And this is one doily. Okay, you've got 91 doilies. So you're going to be a little bit busy, I think, because I could not drag myself out of my craft room when I was doing this because it just kept going. It was just amazing. And every time you create a different file, so let's say that this doily costs you 50 pence, okay? So if the USB is £45, each doily, forget the corners and the frames, each doily is costing you 90 pence. 9 5's 45, okay? So £45 for the USB, you've got, it's 50 pence a doily. Every time you create something different, so the first time you do something different, it's then cost you 25 pence. The second time you do something different, it's cost you 12.5 pence. Then it's cost you 6 pence, then it's cost you 3 pence, and it's cost you 1.5 pence. And by the time you've done 8, you're less than a penny. That's why I started this video saying, I can't remember the last time I bought you such a creative, versatile, and phenomenal value USB, because it really is amazing. So once you've got to that stage, you'll send it back to your machine and you'll create an inward offset or an outward offset line, and you will end up with this, which I think is just lovely. And actually, you put a little, well, I don't even think you need to put, you will put sentiment on it, wouldn't you? You might have a matte layer with your card blank. You could put a solid piece across here with your sentiment on, maybe a bow at the side that you've made out of 2 circles and a rectangle, and that's your card done. It's just lovely, and they're striking. But that is also a stencil. So you can also use that with your foiling pen, your hot foiling pen from Highlight Crafts. It's just amazing. Right, next bit is this one, okay? So this is different. And the way that we're going to do this, if I can remember rightly, is we're going to, let's have a look, where am I at here? I want the original. So I'm going to retrieve it from the cloud. I want the original rotated shape. So here we are, edit, object edit, rotate, 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And I'm going to save that into the cloud. Okay, we've got that. So I'm going to move this over here. let's go to my projects, refresh and retrieve. Right, so I've got this now, so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Now I want to create a matte layer for this, okay? So I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to duplicate it first of all. So I've got 2. I'm then going to go to Edit again, and I'm going to create a 3mm outward offset line and delete the original. And it gives me all these pieces. Now, if I'd rotated this in Canvas, it would have rotated that back to its original orientation. That's why I rotated it on my machine. But if I now grab all this, go to Edit and Weld, it gives me a perfect matte layer for that. If I then think 3mm is too wide, I've got the offset then. So now I can go to Edit and create a 1mm inward offset line and delete the original. And now I've got a 2mm. And the reason I use 3mm is because every part of this needs to overlap to be able to weld. If I did 2mm, some of them might not have done. So I'll always go bigger, and then I'll create an inward offset line, because once you've got an offset, it's still going to be perfect around your original shape like that. Okay, so then all we did then was edit and divide. Think about this before I do it. Let me just make sure. I'm going to duplicate that first. So edit and duplicate. You'll only do it once. Well, you won't only do it once, because I do it all the time because I forget. But you'll get used to what the process. You don't forget to duplicate it before you do it, because otherwise, if you don't and you want, it's easier to delete a shape. So once you've created an offset, it's easier to delete the original when you're working with so much detail. Right, so that's going to go over there. Now we want, think about this, we want 4 of these welded together, and then the black ones are welded together. So the easiest way to do this, I think, is, let's think of a different way. So 4 of them. So edit, duplicate, pull it over, just select one of them. There you go. Move that over and just overlap it slightly there. Then we're going to drag across both of those. Go to Edit, align them to the bottom or the top. I'm going to zoom in because I'm not quite sure that I'm happy with that overlap. I'm going to click on this one and nudge that over a little bit. That's better. Then I'm going to unzoom. I'm going to drag across both of those, go to Edit and Weld. There we go. And then I can have 2 of those. Select it first, Melanie. Edit, duplicate that. It's all learning. It's all about learning. And if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. Round it to the left. I'm going to click on this one and I'm going to drop that down slightly. There we are, it's better. Grab both of those, go to Edit and Weld. There we go. So I've now got that. Now, let's see what happens if we try and do this. This might be too much for it to handle, but we'll try it. So if we go to Edit, duplicate, it's always worth duplicating it because you can always get rid of it after. Go to this and create a 3mm outward offset line and delete the original. There you go, perfect matte layer. And that then sits perfectly on top of that. Do you know what? This machine is absolutely phenomenal, and Canvas Workspace just takes it to another level. So if I now group that, or divide it even, let's divide it, see if it will divide, because sometimes if you ask it to do a lot, oh no, it's done it. Oh, see what's happened now? It's divided the, oh, that's nice, because you get a frame, look. Oh, heck, this is another thing I've just discovered. Look at that. So if I move that out of the way, so you would just cut them 2 separate ones and go over the top, because you can create an offset of that and an offset of that. Look Look at that, you've got two. You've got a little frame now that could go around the outside edge. It's brilliant. The problem is, it's like going down a rabbit hole. It's very difficult to come back out again because you just want to stay there and create all these amazing things. Right, so that is this one, okay? I'm going to show you a couple more and then I'm going to go and get ready and see what else I can find to do with it. So this, I'm just actually going to show you what this is because this will be easier. So I'm going to Project Plus all this. So I've got it, I've saved it. It doesn't all have to be on the mat when you Project Plus it. It can just be on the screen. But when you download it, it has to be within the parameters of the mat. Right, so tell you what we'll do with this. We'll bring this over. Come on, bring you over here. Get rid of those two, don't need that. And let's see if we can ungroup this. So edit and ungroup, we can. And then I'm going to drag all of that up there. Like that. I'm going to right click and group that. Move that out of the way. So I've now got a double. And then I'm going to work on this one. So I'm going to split this shape, okay? So we're going to group that, edit and group. And I want to split it because I just want the two. So go to basic shapes, square. Your square, your shape, needs to be wider than the pattern that you're separating. And you can't do it with a line, just so that you know. So I'm going to select both of those, edit. Do I want to do this? Yes, I do. Sorry, I'm just thinking ahead. Divide. That gives me that, which is rather nice anyway. Then I grab this bit up to the line that it's created and left in the middle. So there, right click and group like that. And then that gives me that. So I put one at the top, one at the bottom, align them so they're aligned centrally vertically, group them. Underneath there, bring in the square, that in that corner, drag it out this way, drag it out that way, edit, align centrally vertically, edit, align centrally horizontally, edit and divide. And there's your card front. And then you send that back to your machine, you create an outward offset line and you end up with this. It's just magic. How clever is that? Brilliant, isn't it? Just brilliant. Right. The corners now. I know, we're still going, right? Andrew's sitting up there going, blinking heck, how much longer? Well, you know what? It'll be as long as it is. Right click. It won't. He loves it, really. Delete. Right, let's go back. I can see the faces pulling as we speak. Right, let's go down to here. Let's go to edit and ungroup. Let's click on that outside edge, right click and delete it. Right, so this time we want to grab the corner. Okay, so we're going to drag across there. I'm going to right click and we're going to group it together. And I only need one. Move that out the way. Rid of all that. Put it in the bin. Okay, so I want to duplicate that. So edit and duplicate. I then want to go to edit and flip horizontally like that. So I've now got that. Okay, so you position these where you want them to be. So I'm going to select both of those, edit, and align them to the bottom, edit and group. Then I'm going to duplicate that. So edit, duplicate, edit, and flip vertically. And there are your four corners to go inside your square. So grab both of those, edit and group, put a square around the outside, and you've got this. which is just genius. I love it. I love it. Now, I'm not going to show you these next bits because I'm going to make you wait for the show. But look, you've got, that's your corner, rotated 45 degrees, made smaller, 4 in a row, grouped, duplicated, flipped or rotated, another layer underneath. Group all that, duplicate it, that's how you make that. And then this one, which I have to say is my favourite. I love this. I think this is just beautiful. Is the same thing, but you create an outward offset line like we did, that outward offset line that we then welded all those pieces. And then we weld all these together. So you've got that, duplicate it, so you've got that. It just keeps going. And then also, just to show you what that looks like without a matte layer, but I am going to have to show you on white, otherwise you won't be able to see it. This is it without the matte layer. So you're going really lacy and pretty now. Imagine this around the edge of a scrapbook page. That would look stunning. And then you've got borders as well. So I'm going to tell you a little, well, you'll know this. Well, no, yeah, you'll know this because you'll have watched the show, I think. But for the show, we have got a certain amount of USBs that are coming with a free pack of 12 by 12 card, and it's a variety of different cards. You've got one that's almost like a weave. You've got one that's quite a bit like a pearlized, just the top layer's got a pearl coating on it. And the USB is for a club member is going to cost you $44.99. That's ridiculous because the cost of the card that you're getting for free is $12.99. So for $32.99, you're getting 91 doilies. I can't remember everything, bear with. 91 doilies, 64 frames, and 37 corners. Imagine the possibilities because everything I've just shown you is with one. You've got another 90 doilies to go at. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please don't forget you can email me at mel@highlightcrafts.com. So mel@highlightcrafts, all one word, .com. And all I can say is please do not miss out on this USB because it is absolutely phenomenal. Take care. See you soon. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
If you want to see more from Highlight Crafts, make sure you click the like button. Subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below and click the bell icon to receive notifications of all our future content. You can also click here to see our latest video or click here to see more videos like this one.